2.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Today's webinar is about our network health analysis services that we provide for our customers. My name is Mark Jose, and I'm a regional sales executive here at StepCG. And I'm here with Keith Temple and Jacob Cecil and Zach Morristine. Guys, if you want to introduce yourself, Keith first.
Yeah, Keith Temple, Principal Network Engineer, supported engineering, LAN, WLAN campus, and K through 12 and other verticals for a number of years.
My name is Jacob Cecil. I was network admin in Madison County for 5 years and then CIO in Madison County for 5 years. Now I'm a professional services engineer for StepCG.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Zachary Morris Dean. I was the network administrator at Carroll County Schools for 9 years and now a professional services engineer at StepCG, focusing on our managed network services product.
And I'm Ryan McKenzie. I cover regions 1 and 2 in Western Kentucky. I'm a regional sales executive also.
Great, thanks, guys. Well, I'm gonna kick this off at a high level. Then I'll turn it over to Jacob and Keith to kind of get more in depth on some of this information. If at any point you have a question, feel free to put those in the chat, and we will try to answer those for you at that time. So StepCG, first of all, StepCG is an IT engineering firm. We're headquartered in Covington, Kentucky, and we specialize in networking. You know, traditional wired and wireless, but also cellular networking. We also have a lot of competencies around voice and security and managed services. But from a high level, on our network health analysis services, you know, we work closely with our customers to compile a lot of data about your wired and wireless networks, right? We're going to build out a comprehensive report and deliver it to you to do whatever you want to do with it, right? It can help you to understand the things that are going well in your network, and maybe some of the things that are not going so well, that maybe you want to look at addressing. Additionally, it can prove to be a roadmap of sorts for you if you're trying to plan out your technology over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You know, we're going to start at layer 1, you know, your inventory and uptime and port speeds and duplex. And we're going to go all the way down through layer 7, you know, management and NTP and syslog and CPU utilization, right? And a whole lot of stuff in between there. We're going to take an in-depth look at your wireless, you know, going through your facilities, checking out your 2.4 gigahertz channels and your 5 gigahertz channels, and just being able to take a look at all the network health throughout that, right? And with all the information that we get, we're gonna build out a comprehensive and customized report for all of this, complete with network diagrams and IPs and physical layouts and links and link aggregation points. The report will contain all of your assets, you know, such as like the device name, what the IP address is. We're going to tell you what the product is, what the serial numbers are, how old it is, what the product life cycle is. And that's kind of at a high level what it's about. But, you know, but like I said, they're going to get more in depth in this. So I'll turn it over to them at this point. But like I said previously, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll get those answered as they come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Why a network health analysis? You know, anybody in the CIO role, you have to do a tech plan every year. It's hard to make a good plan for the future if you don't know where you are now. The network health analysis is going to give you a very good detailed view of where you are now with your network, the age of your equipment, how things are connected, how they're running, if you have enough APs, if you have too many that are close together, any of that kind of thing. Without a solid understanding of the current state of your network, a good plan for the future is just a guess. It's not going to be very accurate. So then another thing that the health analysis will address is networks tend to grow a little bit over time without an overlying plan sometimes. Keith likes to call that network debt. I'm going to let him talk about that just a little bit now.
Yeah, so been doing this for a number of verticals, K through 12 being one of them, universities. Everybody's trying to get to the same internet rate. But it's, from our experience and seeing other peers, everybody's kind of fighting similar problems, whether it be OSI layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, all the way up to layer 7. The higher you get up on that list, the harder it is, right? Never mind layer 8, 9, and 10 if you want to define those. But it's kind of like having a car or a house. It, maybe not taking care of it, not changing the oil as frequently as you should. There's a lot of stuff we should be doing, and the network is, everything kind of rides on the network. Everything like seems to be mission critical, whatever app or social app you got going these days that we're supporting. And then a lot of times Wi-Fi seems like black magic, but I'll be honest, all the Ethernet, all the IP, it is a science. They're all protocols, but it is a lot to know and understand. And so you accumulate, you add switches here and there, you add applications, you take stuff away, you make things work because you have to make them work. And that just evolves over time, right? Never mind new applications and new demands come down, different manufacturers, different licensing models, right? So all that comes down. So it's just, you just got to make it work, right? So trying to get some best practices in a common term, but not an overused term, but pretty subjective, right? And Jacob's going to talk about best practices, but trying to get all the configurations consistent, implementing these best practices that we know work across the board, generally speaking, right? Again, we're all using the same Wi-Fi, we're all using Ethernet, we're all using IP, we're all trying to get to the same internet, right? So doing a lot of that, kind of doing this, basically doing assessment, right? Do I need more switches? Do I need more access points? Do I need to turn up the power, turn down the power? Is my spanning tree right? Why am I chasing my tail on XYZ, or why is this happening, chasing ghost and intermittent issues from time to time, right? So this debt, which I call debt, right? Networking debt is accumulated over years, right? And it doesn't get paid off in a matter of hours or days at times, but just kind of getting to know like where you're at, right? To start eating the elephant one bite at a time, to prioritize, right? So, and I think, Jacob, they're going to about, some recommendations, as well as when we do the report, it is fairly manual, along with some automated tools and just getting some visibility into the network when we go through and look at the networking debt to see how much it is, right? So we'll be like, oh, there's some attaboys, there's some really good stuff here. And then, there's other things that to pay off the networking debt, there's things that an IT staff and CIO are going to appreciate. And then there's things that an end user will appreciate, right? So, and they're not always the same, but that's the networking debt. And the network analysis health check has helped just go from unknown to known to identify and prioritize how to start paying that off and getting some results. So Mark, Ryan, anything you guys want to add before, otherwise hand it back over to Jacob or Zach as well?
I do not have anything at this point.
Cool. Yep. Pop any questions into the chat out there as they come to your mind.
Thank you, Keith. So what is a network health analysis? We capture a good snapshot of the current state of your network. We conduct a physical site survey where we visit each of the IDFs and MDFs to see what's there, see what the environment looks like, see what the switches look like. We log into each of the switches and we analyze the settings. We analyze different things that are visible from the switches. We look at how they're configured, how they're connected, what software they're running, that kind of thing, and make notes on that on those settings. One of the options is a wireless site survey. We can walk through your facilities and map out how strong the wireless signal is, what kind of interference there is, that kind of thing. We put what's called the StepCG dashboard in place. It monitors things continuously. It monitors bandwidth. It monitors your devices, monitors anything that can be accessible through SNMP, really. Monitors it continuously. So if there's a stack that's rebooting overnight and you're not sure why, this could provide some insight into why it's doing that. We really examine physically. We look at everything that has a packet from the end user out to the internet, just to take notes on it. The physical site survey, a little bit more details on that. We visit each of the sites.
Jacob.
Yes.
If you go back a slide, can you talk to the network diagram there? How important that is, just for following back and forth?
the diagram itself, you'll see at the bottom left there, a lot of things, like we talked about earlier, networks grow organically, and there might not be good documentation on how things are connected together. That's one of the things we provide as part of this, as part of the health analysis, is we go in and look at every switch and see how they're connected to all the other switches, and we provide a good topology of that. So you can see my core is connected through port whatever to this elementary school over here, or if there's things that maybe you weren't sure how they were connected, that's one thing that we map out as part of that. So.
Thanks, sir. Sorry, I probably already got you off script.
No, you're okay. The physical network survey, we look at like I said, we visit each of the closets in your facilities. We look and see how many switches you have, how many ports are on those switches, how many routers are there wireless controllers. We check the UPSs. Are there UPSs there? Are the batteries in good shape? Are they maxed out on the power they're providing? We make a note of that. We look and see what kind of fiber is connecting your closets together. What kind of connectors are there? We look at the environmental conditions. Is the closet running really, really hot? Is it really, really cold? Is there a sprinkler head right over top of your stack that you might want to make a note of? Is the room secure, or is it open to anybody? Is there a bunch of, is it anybody can just walk in and get in there and start pulling wires out if they want to, or is there a lock and key or a key card, or how's the room secured? We just make a note of all of these kind of things for each of the closets so that you can have it in one central location.
Along with a snapshot picture, right?
Yes, and we take a picture of each of the closets as well, yep. The configuration, we look, as we were talking earlier, we draw an accurate topology based on how the switches are connected together. We create a detailed inventory of the devices. We record the serial numbers, what version of the software they're running. From serial number, you can get the data manufacturer. We look up and see, are your devices, is there an end of life, end of support announcement for them, and when is that going to end? We check in and we make a record of CPU utilization. How many VLANs are there? Are you running any kind of loop prevention? Is spanning tree configured like it should be? Are all your switches running, do you have available PoE budget, or are they running out? How's the stacking health on them? Are the stacking cables connected correctly, or is there one that's not plugged in? Is there management ports open that you're not using? That could be a vector for somebody to log into a switch and cause some havoc that way. We look at all those kind of things, compare them to our own experience with the best practice as well as industry best practices, and either point out, as Keith said earlier, the attaboys, or we make recommendations on how things could be better to improve your reliability, manageability, and performance. That's something that both your end user and you will appreciate. A wireless survey. Additional APs aren't always the answer. You can have too many APs cross-talking with each other, or you could have some environmental factor that's causing the AP signal to be drowned out. We go through, that's one of the options we can go through. We'll visit each classroom, we'll visit each common area, we'll take recordings, and it'll generate a heat map. So you'll be able to see all the APs in hallway 6 are all using channel 6, and they're talking over each other. The power settings are too high, the APs are drowning each other out. We can gather all that kind of data and then present it to you in a heat map so you can see, where's my problem areas, where do I have good coverage, where do I, need some additional APs. That's going to help it. As I said, additional APs aren't always the answer. Sometimes you just need to reconfigure the APs that are there so they'll work better. They'll work together better. Using the dashboard, as I said, we'll gather bandwidth statistics. We'll see, are there any links that aren't configured correctly? Are you saturating your link up to the KDE network, and possibly why? Is all that data coming from one school, or is it kind of aggregating from everybody? We can gather that kind of data using the dashboard because it continuously monitors bandwidth and all the other stats on your network. And then we combine all of this data that we collect into a couple of reports for you. The topology map that I mentioned, we create that for you so you have a good layout of your network. The inventory it's pretty valuable because, again, devices get added one at a time. You might not have good documents on what's where and that kind of thing. A technical report, we go through all the things that I talked about. We make notes, what settings are good, what could be a little bit better on a technical level. We show you the commands we ran to get that kind of thing, to get that data. We show you, specific instances of what could be made better. And then a summary report is something that we generate for less technical people, your district leaders, your district administrators that might want to know, how's our network doing? We talk about the good things that are there, things that could be a little better on a high level so they can understand, our switches are getting old. We need to start budgeting for some new ones, or, you know, our switches, you know, our IT staff needs some additional training or something like that, so on a level that they can understand. And then the heat maps, that's something that would provide as well, if that's an option that you choose. And then I'll turn it over to Keith to talk about the next slide.
Yeah, so Jacob is, you know, so I kind of mentioned like some of the networking depth, the why, the lay of the land, what's out there. Jacob has gone through and kind of described what it is, network health analysis, right? Because it can be kind of broad and generic. So a little bit more detail on the network analysis. What are the options we have? How much does it cost? How much is it? That's usually the second question. Usually the first question is, what is it? The second question on anything is, I like that. What is it? And the second question is usually, how much is it? I guess, Mark, Zach, are there any questions out there?
Yeah, there's one. Mark, can you see that?
No, go ahead and read it.
Okay. We're being asked, is the wireless survey standard as part of the health analysis, or is it an additional cost?
Yeah, right now it's additional, right? There's a lot of time involved with that. So that's kind of what this slide is, which we're looking at, right? So everything that we talk about, so we've got the physical closet survey. We go through and each closet, look at each closet, get the lay of the land, really focused on layer one, the physical, right? The inventory, the assets, how many fibers, where they're going, what type they are. So that's handy in a number of different ways. What kind of fiber connectors you have. Taking a picture of the closet, you kind of see that down there at the bottom left, right, in the orange column. So you guys know your network, you know how rhythms, you know how heartbeats, but you know, what model of switches do I have? What UPSs do I have? Like, how many do I have? That like it can be hard to discover, and it just takes time. So going out there and doing that, and visiting each school to do that, right, at each closet. So that's the physical closet survey. So yeah, we have network technicians going around filling out a survey, and we get all that information, we compile it, and then take that information to the second level, which is the configuration analysis. And these are pretty much included. The orange column and the yellow column are included, right? So you see price by based on number of locations. So the configuration analysis, I mean, you'll get anywhere from a 15 to 20 page report, as well as the network diagram of how everything's connected, where we're routing, where we're switching, where we're bridging, how many APs are at each location. So all that's going to be in that network diagram. That is like the only way us STEP CG engineers follow each other. And you know, if we don't keep it in our head. We've got to write it. We got to write the right amount of information down. So those network diagrams are important. And then the pictures of each closet come in handy at times, right, in a pinch. But the configuration analysis is going through, really focused on layer 2, 3, up to 7, to see all the different manufacturers, right? Extreme, Aruba, Fortinet, Cisco, you name it, right? They kind of have their flavor of best practices. But they're all doing Ethernet, they're all doing IP, they all got to play by those rules. So implement a lot of those best practices, get the loop prevention right, get the right routing, right number of VLAN, stuff like that. So we'll make all these recommendations, right? So we're not going to make changes, but we're going to make a bunch of recommendations, and we're going to like, hey, you're doing this really well. You're doing this, and this really well. You're doing this is like, hey, we've got another situation here. Like, hey, you really need to look at this sooner than later. This is a red thing. You need to really worry about this. We need to fix it sooner or later. Your users are going to appreciate this. And then you might have a yellow item that's like, you know what, your users aren't going to appreciate it, but your IT staff will appreciate if you make this change, right? Just stuff like that. So it's not just coming in and putting a tool in and running an automation tool. There's a lot of like kind of experience and wisdom and knowledge that goes into authoring the document. And the tool we use for the closet survey on the left is, always the people and the engineers that we have, but on the left, on the closet survey, the survey tool that we use, and taking a picture, and then the configuration analysis, the key tool we use to develop that report and gain data over a couple of weeks is our dashboard, right? And that's the bandwidth statistics and other things like temperature and power and fans and situation, and even a more detailed inventory with serial numbers and stuff like that. The dashboard can capture, and then you have that, right? And then because it takes a lot of time, and the wireless site survey, right? So we use a couple of different tools, whether it be EchoHow or some other tools, to do an active site survey of one building, multiple buildings. I don't know that anybody has the time or money to do wireless site survey at every or K through 12, generally speaking, in common areas has been very successful, right? And it's really getting that middle column accurate with the configuration analysis, right? So if you want heat maps, with the configuration analysis, we can do some spot checking with some other tools that we have, but to do a full heat map, right now we're making that an extra add-on, right? Because that takes a lot of time, but maybe you just want to do it at the high school, middle school, maybe not at every elementary school, right? Not even, I think Fortune 500 companies have the luxury to do a site survey everywhere, right? So that's an add-on, right? So I'll say, today, right? Second question is always, how much does it cost? $2,500 per location, right? $2,500 per location. You have a high school, middle school, right? That's where we're at right now. We're considering a tiered approach as we get larger number of buildings that you may have, but generally speaking, that gives you a budget to how you can price this, right? $2,500 per location. And I'll tell you this: if you have like a small bus garage or something small like that, whatever that's attached to, we'll probably just toss that in, right? Those smaller buildings, but based on number of schools, you can get a rough idea. And then the add-on would be $2,500 per location for the wireless. If you really want to go in depth on the wireless, right? So the configuration analysis, we're going to get a lot of configuration best practices and analysis on your wireless with the closet survey, as well as the configuration analysis. We'll get all those basic data rates, channels, auto channel power, do some roaming around. It just won't be the full blown report heat map that, if you wanted to show some of that on the right side there, the green side. I don't think I rambled too much, but that might generate some questions. Now we know how much it costs and what it is and isn't.
Yeah, and
go ahead, Mark.
Keith, there is a question that came in, and you kind of answered this, but it says, how long do these projects last? And I think you kind of mentioned maybe a couple of weeks, but
no, yeah. So generally speaking, I've seen us get through 10 buildings on a closet walkthrough in one day, one long day, right? And then with the configuration analysis, basically it's just putting a dashboard in there for a week or two to collect data, just to have a little bit of a history and see the rhythm, right? So then we can see if our network, if your network at a moment goes through cardiac arrest or it flatlines for a period, right? So generally speaking, I'm going to say 2 weeks at most, right? But it's going to take a couple of days to compile and go through the network and compile that report. And then to do the wireless walkthroughs, that's almost going to double the time to do all those walkthroughs, because it's very detail oriented to add that portion on. So,
Keith, we've seen some customers in the past that have been very surprised with you talk about the heartbeat that the network has with the graphs. I mean, where people come in each day, 5 days a week, kind of has its own rhythmic heartbeat. And we've had some customers in the past, right, that have been surprised at seeing, well, we're having a problem on this day, and when we look at the graph, it looks so much different. That's been very telling for those customers.
Yep. I mean, surprisingly, these things are pretty rhythmic despite the burstiness of Ethernet. But it's a lot, right? I mean, all of our engineers, male, female, we specialize in networking, getting your Ethernet packet from A to B, wired, wireless to cellular. So we're not, entirely focused on desktops and printers and servers and all that stuff, right? We have to provide connection to that, make sure it's good, and disprove the network or fix the network when it is broke. But This is not changing anything. This is giving you good knowledge and some wisdom. Even looking at the switches and the different gear that you have is, some life cycle management. Not just giving you information where we could put like some automated tool like, oh, hey, this is what you got. Okay, well, what do I do with this? No, we'll have like a business summary, an education summary, like, hey, if you start chipping away at this, you'll see results with this, or you won't see results with that, or you need to take care of this sooner than later, or you're doing, like, amongst your peers, you're doing this way better than everybody else, right? So that's just turning the unknown into known, getting that right documentation analysis, and there's probably a lot of things that can be fixed relatively, just trying to figure out, diagnose, right? Stealing from the medical industry to collect symptoms, diagnose, prescribe. So this is very much a collect symptoms and diagnosis, right? So it's like a doctor, they're just going to tell you you should exercise more. Exercise more and eat less. Ugh.
Thank you, Keith. Then, does anybody have any other questions that have come in?
No. Yeah, no question. I do have a comment. I just want to say, I think that a lot of times people are under the impression that maybe if they're having problems with BYOD, people can't connect to it, or the internet's slow at this building, and they maybe have the assumption that they just need to buy more, newer boxes, and that might be the case in some instances. But I think a lot of times it's not. I think it's just a matter of maximizing what you already have invested in. So.
And that's a very good point. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a very good point. Is a lot of times, being in the K-12 environment, somebody may inherit a network from somebody else that they may not know exactly how it was set up or how it's doing what it's doing. Having a set of eyes come in that hasn't seen it before, a fresh set of eyes, that a lot of times that's going to be a good way to be able to help spot problems and to make things run more efficiently too. That's, as you said, maximizing what's there, making sure it's configured optimally is going to be helpful, because new equipment and more equipment isn't always the answer if what you have isn't running as well as it could be.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'll just say two things, and you can probably, if you go back one slide, Jacob, but for all of our customers, you guys always have access to wiki.stepcg.com. There's a lot of information on that. We use it internally and externally, kind of like a networking first aid, tips and tricks, stuff we commonly run into. So can always requires a login, but because it's for our customers. But all the StepCG engineers contribute to that. So there's a lot of knowledge if you like reading and hacking away at this stuff on the wiki.stepcg.com. And I will say for our MIBS LAN and MIBS WLAN customers, the physical closet survey and configuration analysis is included. Like, that's something we need to do for you guys, along with the MIBS LAN and WLAN services. So that's something we can schedule and do for our MIBS LAN and WLAN customers, is complete the closet survey and configuration analysis. Because honestly, if that's something we fail, we're failing ourselves, right? To be blunt. So yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to say about our MIBS customers for the closet survey and config analysis.
Yeah.
So included. Trying to keep it simple, ladies and gentlemen. Stuff is complex enough.
There is another question that came in, and I could probably answer this, but how do I get started? So I mean, really, it's just a matter of if you're interested, you can reach out to myself or Ryan McKenzie, or any of us, or whoever your sales rep is, and we can have a conversation, and then work on getting you some official pricing and getting the project moving forward.
Yeah, and I will say we do a lot of business outside of Kentucky on multiple verticals, Michigan down to Florida, over to the Carolinas and Texas and such. I think Kentucky's well represented on this call, I presume. You guys probably know a lot of our email addresses and phone numbers. A lot of that hasn't changed. Feel free to blast us, reach out to us. You got Ryan and Mark on the sales side, and then you got myself, Jacob, and Zach, and so many others on the engineering side, and so many others on the sales and operations side, supporting Ryan and Mark.
Cool. All right. Well, with all that said, if no other questions come in, I wanted to thank everybody who did attend today. And if like we said, if you would like to have a further conversation, just let us know, and we will help you out from there. So thanks again, and everybody have a great rest of your day.